Now moving on to precipitation, it is otherwise known as rainfall. So this is one of the major components in a hydrologic cycle. Okay, so I have given two definitions. So precipitation is a term used for all forms of moisture coming from the clouds and falling to the ground, or you can otherwise write as it is any product of the condensation of water vapors that fall under gravity. Okay, so you know what is meant by rainfall or precipitation. Now coming to the mechanism of precipitation, that is how rainfall occurs. So we have already discussed that water goes on evaporation continuously from the water surfaces on earth, like example river, lake, sea, ocean, etc., by the effect of sun. So the water vapor goes on collecting in the atmosphere up to a certain limit. When this limit exceeds, the water vapor gets condensed and thereby cloud is formed. Okay, so ultimately droplets are formed and returned to the earth in the form of rain, or it can be in other forms like snowfall, etc. So this is known as precipitation. So in this figure itself, you can see the rising air cools up and water vapor condenses into cloud droplets, and then some droplets grew larger particles. When small droplets combines and it forms larger particles, then after a certain height, when it reaches, it form as ice crystals. So it begin forming in below freezing air. Then what happens? It expands its size. Then slowly, when it comes down, these crystals started melting, and this melted air finally hits the ground as rain. So this is the total mechanism of precipitation. Now these are the forms of precipitation. You can see some figures. Dew. This is mist. In case of foggy day, you can see like this. Rainy day. These are hailstones, aliparam. Then snow. So all these are the forms of rainfall or forms of precipitation. This is another figure showing the forms of precipitation. Now we will study the different forms of precipitation. So drizzle, rain, snow, hail, glaze, sleet, etc. Okay, so we will see one by one. So the first one is drizzle. So in drizzle, the precipitation or the rainfall occurs in the form of fine sprinkle of very small drops. Okay, so the diameter of these drops vary from 0.1 to 0.5 mm size. And about rain, you know what is meant by rain. The precipitation occurs in the form of larger water drops with diameter larger than 0.5 mm, but it is less than 6 mm size. Okay, so it should be between that. Now third one is snow. Snow is another type of precipitation. It is in the form of solid ice crystals. Usually carries a very thin coating of liquid water. Okay, now next one is hail. This type of precipitation, it forms like a ball or irregular lumps of ice. It has a diameter of 5 mm or more than that. Okay, now next one is glaze. Glaze is another form of precipitation which falls as rain, and when suddenly it strikes the ground, it started freezing, or it freezes when striking the ground. It's also known as freezing rain. Next is sleet. It is in fact a mixture of snow and rain. Okay, and this diameter, the diameter of this sleet, it is otherwise known as pellets. The diameter of this is generally between 1 mm to 4 mm. So while studying the forms of precipitation, the size is very important. Okay, the size of each forms of precipitation. Now coming to the next part, the types of precipitation. There are three major types of precipitation. First one is cyclonic precipitation. It can be either frontal and non-frontal. So this type of cyclonic precipitation can be basically because of two types of cyclones. The first one is tropical cyclones. Tropical cyclones are in India it is called as cyclones, and in USA it is called hurricane, and in Southeast Asia it is called typhoons. Okay, so it is a wind system associated with an intense depression. You might have heard of Nuna Mardam, low pressure area and all. So that is the result of tropical cyclones. Then second one is extra tropical cyclones. So this cyclone is formed in locations outside the tropical zones. Okay, so these are associated with a frontal type of system. I'll be explaining what is frontal and non-frontal in the next slide. Then second one is the convective precipitation, and third one is orographic precipitation. I'll be explaining each with the diagrams. So the first one is cyclonic precipitation. As I said earlier, it can be of two types, frontal and non-frontal. So this cyclonic precipitation is actually caused due to the pressure differences. Okay, in this diagram you can see this is a portion with cold air. So that is called cold front, and this is an area with warm moist air. So that is warm moist front. Okay, so when these two air comes in contact, it forms cyclonic precipitation. So cyclonic precipitation is caused by lifting of an air mass due to the pressure differences. Okay. And as I said earlier, it may be either frontal or non-frontal cyclonic precipitation. Now let me explain what is frontal precipitation. So in this itself you can see, so here this frontal precipitation, it actually results from the lifting of warm and moist air on one side of a frontal surface over the colder or denser air on the other side. So when it combines and it forms the frontal precipitation. Okay, it is otherwise known as cyclonic precipitation. And second one is non-frontal, is otherwise known as convergence. So here, if low pressure occurs in an area, low pressure in the sense, as I said earlier, cyclones or Nunamardha, what happens? Air will flow horizontally from this surrounding area, that is high pressure, okay, causing the air in the lower pressure area to lift up. So when the lifted warm air cools down at higher altitude, non-frontal cyclone precipitation will occur. Okay. Now, second one is the convective precipitation. So from this diagram, you can understand very well the convective precipitation results from natural rising of warmer, lighter air in colder and denser surroundings. So here it clearly shows the moist air rises up and it mixes with the hot surface air, and finally the cooled air condenses and then forms precipitation. Okay, so when the moist air rises, it cools and the moisture condenses into clouds and then finally precipitate as rainfall. Then the third one is orographic precipitation. So here you can see a mountain, and this part is called windward side, and this is the leeward side. Okay, so windward side, what is the specialty of a windward side? The windward side will get maximum rainfall and the leeward side will get only very little rainfall. So orographic precipitation is caused by air masses. So you can see the air masses moving, which strikes some natural topographic barriers. Like here you can see a mountain. So when it comes, this warm moist wind flows, it strikes some natural barriers like mountains, and it cannot move forward. And what happens? Hence it rises up and causing condensation and finally precipitation. So what happens? This air cannot move to the opposite side, so it hits here and finally condenses and forms rainfall. Okay, so that this side will get more rainfall and this side will get only very little rainfall. So here all the precipitation we have in Himalayan region is because of this orographic precipitation nature. So these are the types of precipitation. Three types. One is cyclonic, it is otherwise known as frontal and non-frontal. Second is convective precipitation, and the third one is orographic precipitation.